Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into the world of commercial aerospace.
Oh, interesting.
You're trying to get a grasp on the current state of the industry,
Yeah.
and you've pointed us to a great resource to help with that, the Commercial Aerospace Insight Report
Okay.
from Accenture. And
Sounds good.
get this, it was published this year.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking hot off the presses insights here.
That's great.
Yeah, and one of the things that jumps out right away is this kind of a paradox.
Mm-hmm.
The industry is booming, like revenue is set to totally blow past pre-pandemic levels.
Wow.
But at the same time, the supply chains are like scrambling to keep up.
Yeah, so it's kind of like everybody wants to fly again.
Right.
But the industry is still trying to get its feet back on the ground after all the...
Yeah, it's like they're taking off, but the baggage handler is still running after them.
Right,
It's
exactly.
a suitcase.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this a little bit. The report predicts an almost 11% increase in global aerospace revenue for 2024
Right.
compared to 2019. I mean, that's a huge jump, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's a huge jump. And I think that's backed up by the fact that Airbus and Boeing secured over 3,410 net new orders in 2023 alone.
Whoa.
You know, that's indicating a pretty strong
Yeah.
and growing demand.
Wow. So what's driving this surge? I mean, is it just pent-up demand from,
Right.
the pandemic years, or is there something more to it?
Well, the report points to a nearly 37% increase in revenue passenger kilometers
Okay.
in 2023.
Wow.
So basically, airlines are flying a lot more people around.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed the airports are packed again.
Like, oh yeah, for sure.
It's a whole thing, just getting through security.
Yeah, I feel that.
But the report also mentions that the Asia-Pacific region
Right.
is really leading this charge. I think international traffic there more than doubled compared to the previous year.
Oh, wow, that's huge.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's not just about people wanting to travel again, but it's also about where they're choosing to go.
right. It's interesting how these travel patterns are shifting. It's definitely going to have a big impact on the industry,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
especially for like aircraft manufacturers and all the
Yeah.
maintenance providers.
Yes.
Speaking of maintenance, let's talk about these supply chain challenges that the industry is facing.
Okay.
The report is saying that these issues are kind of easing up, but they're probably going to still impact growth through 2024, maybe even 2025.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. You know, manufacturers are finding it tough to keep up with this demand, which is leading to delays in getting those aircraft delivered. I mean,
Right.
we even see this reflected in statements from the CEOs of both Airbus and Boeing,
Oh, really?
who've acknowledged this balancing act they're dealing with.
Wow.
You know, trying to meet the demand, but also not compromising on quality.
It's got to be tricky, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But you know what else I found interesting in the report? They pointed out this bottleneck that's actually related to technology, or the lack thereof, I guess.
Okay.
Apparently, the slow adoption of automation and digitalization in how suppliers communicate is also causing these delays.
That's surprising.
Right. Over half of executives are still using like manual processes to track their supply chains
Oh, wow.
and manage risks.
That seems so inefficient.
I know, it's like they're trying to fly a plane with a paper map
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
instead of, all the fancy computer systems they have.
Right.
So much opportunity there for the industry to really improve things.
For sure. Imagine the efficiency gains if companies could fully embrace digital tools like, AI and real-time data analytics for supply chain management.
It's like a whole new world of possibilities.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not just about making things faster, it's about making them smarter.
Absolutely.
So now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about another part of the industry that's really interesting.
Okay.
It's called the aftermarket, or MRO. That stands for maintenance, repair, and overhaul. The report predicts a 20% growth in MRO revenue for 2024 compared to 2019.
Okay.
So why is that? Why is that sector seeing such a big jump?
Well, it's largely because airlines are having to keep their older planes in service longer
Right?
because of those delays in new aircraft deliveries that we talked about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And this, combined with things like engine recalls, Pratt & Whitney, for instance,
All right.
has just led to this huge surge in demand for maintenance and repair services.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, for you, thinking about maybe getting into this market, the report also dives into some of the specifics of MRO contracts, like the challenges with long-duration, fixed-price contracts.
Yeah.
They're becoming less attractive because of all the, price fluctuations in materials and labor costs.
Oh, I see. That's interesting.
Right. So like how do you predict costs and stay profitable when everything is so unpredictable?
Right. Yeah.
They actually use Safran as an example. They're a big player in aircraft engine MRO, and they're projecting a 20% surge in revenue this year.
Wow.
But it's mostly from spare parts sales.
Hmm.
So it's kind of a shift, maybe moving away from those long-term contracts
Right.
and focusing more on these high-demand parts.
That makes sense.
So it's definitely something to watch as you kind of explore your options in that area.
For sure.
The report doesn't just focus on the problems, though. It also points to some potential solutions.
That's good.
One of the big ones is improving collaboration across the entire supply chain.
Okay.
Because right now, it takes companies an average of 93 days to recover from a supply chain disruption.
Whoa, 93 days.
Yeah, that's almost a quarter of a year. That's a lot of time and money lost.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the report suggests using these things called digital twins,
Digital twins.
which are basically virtual representations of the supply chain
Oh,
to map out all those complex connections and dependencies.
oh, okay.
So you can kind of see where the weak points are. Nice.
Before they turn into big problems.
Right. That makes sense.
And it also talks about using AI for like proactive engagement with suppliers.
So it's about being like one step ahead
Right.
instead of always reacting to problems after they've already happened.
Exactly. It's like having a crystal ball for your supply chain.
Yeah.
But the question is, are companies actually adopting these solutions?
That's the key question.
Yeah, because the report says that only 48% of companies have fully mapped their supply networks.
So there's a big gap between realizing they need to make these changes
Right.
and actually doing it.
Like they know they need a GPS, but they're still clinging to that old paper map.
Yeah, I get it.
And speaking of potential roadblocks, the report also highlights the issue of geopolitical instability.
Oh, right.
Like all the political unrest and regional conflicts that are happening around the world. It's like a big shadow hanging over the industry.
Yeah, definitely a lot of uncertainty. Yeah, and these aren't just abstract concerns. Like the report talks about how Gulfstream had to reduce deliveries of their G280 aircraft
Okay.
because they're manufactured in Israel, and there was
Yeah,
that recent conflict.
that makes sense.
Yeah, so it has real-world consequences.
Absolutely.
And then there's the economic side of things.
Right.
Like
Okay.
the report mentions Dassault Aviation is seeing strong sales in the U.S., but weak demand in Europe,
Interesting.
maybe because of fears of a recession over there.
Yeah, it could be.
So all of these geopolitical and economic headwinds
Yeah.
are just adding another layer of complexity to the industry's outlook.
Yeah, it's a lot to navigate.
And it's not just about understanding what's happening today. It's about anticipating what might happen tomorrow.
Yeah, it's like trying to fly through a storm. You've got to constantly adjust your course and be prepared for the unexpected.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
So, on that note, let's take a closer look at some of the regional dynamics that are shaping the industry, especially since you're particularly interested in the Asia-Pacific region.
Right. Yeah.
The report gives us a kind of regional flyover. So let's start with Asia-Pacific, since that's, top of mind for you.
Sounds good.
The report predicts that's going to be the fastest growing region.
Really?
Yeah, a whopping 54% revenue increase is projected for 2024
Wow, that's incredible.
compared to 2019. This growth is being driven by a bunch of factors. A surge in MRO activities, more production happening in China, huge orders coming from Indian Airlines,
Okay.
and just a lot of investment interest in the region.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really taken off.
Yeah, they've got a clear runway for sure. But then we look at North America,
Yeah.
which is projected to see a more modest 10% revenue growth
Okay, that makes sense.
over 2019 levels. But there's a catch.
Yeah.
They've got the production rate caps, which are kind of holding things back.
I see.
Boeing, for example, is still struggling to ramp up production of the 737 MAX because of those ongoing supply chain issues.
So they haven't quite hit full speed yet.
Right, they're still taxiing.
Got it.
Now, what about Europe? How are they doing?
Well, despite all the economic challenges over there,
Right.
they're still expected to see solid growth. Revenue is projected to be just 1% below 2019 levels.
Oh, so they're almost back to where they were.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And I think that stability is partly due to the success of Airbus.
So it's a mixed bag, right?
Yeah.
Every region has its own unique set of opportunities
Here.
and challenges.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to see how these different regions are kind of competing
That's like a global race.
and collaborating
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a really dynamic landscape.
Absolutely. And it's constantly changing. So it's important to stay informed and be adaptable if you want to succeed in this industry.
I agree. So we've covered a lot of ground so far. You
Yeah.
know, we talked about the soaring revenue projections,
Mhm.
the supply chain woes that are still lingering, the impact of all these geopolitical events,
Yeah.
and then the different outlooks for each region.
That's a lot to take in.
It is. But there's one area that the report didn't really explore in detail
Okay.
that I think is worth talking about, especially as we look towards the future.
And what's that?
Well, while the report gave us a great snapshot of the industry today,
Right.
it didn't really delve into the potential impact of two emerging factors: sustainable aviation fuels, or SAF,
Okay.
and the rise of new technologies like electric aircraft.
Ah, interesting.
I mean, these could be game changers,
It
right?
could be, yeah.
They could completely redefine the trajectory of the industry.
Absolutely.
So it's like we're at this crossroads, do we focus on optimizing what we already have,
Right.
or do we venture into this uncharted territory?
That's a tough question.
And which path will the industry choose?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of choosing one or the other. I think we'll likely see a blend of both. Incremental improvements to the technologies we have now happening alongside the development of these brand new alternatives.
Right, so like upgrading the avionics while also experimenting with new engine designs.
Exactly.
That makes sense. And this balancing act is probably driven by all the pressures the industry is facing, right?
Oh, yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, the demand for air travel is only going to increase.
Right,
But so is the pressure to reduce its environmental impact.
for sure.
So it's like this constant push and pull
Yeah, it's a delicate balance.
between growth and responsibility.
Absolutely.
And speaking of responsibility, the report also touches on safety, especially with what happened with Boeing and the 737 MAX. It seems like they're being much more cautious now
That's good to hear.
about increasing production, really putting safety first.
Yeah, I think that's the right approach.
The report actually quotes Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun, who has repeatedly said that safety is paramount.
That's reassuring.
He knows they need to rebuild public trust. And I think this shift towards a safety-first culture is a positive development
Yeah, it's a good sign.
for the whole industry.
Yeah, for everywhere.
Because it shows a commitment to earning back passenger confidence.
Right, which is so important.
Yeah, you can't have a successful industry if people are afraid to fly.
Exactly.
So it's a good reminder that growth can't come at the expense of safety.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about preventing accidents. It's about building a sustainable industry where passengers feel safe and confident in their choice to fly.
Right. It's about creating a culture of safety
Jane,
where
thanks.
everyone is committed to doing things the right way.
And that takes a holistic approach, right?
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
about considering all the interconnected factors: safety, environmental impact, economic viability, technological innovation.
Right. It's a complex equation,
It is.
but one that the industry has to solve
For sure.
if they want to have a successful future.
Absolutely. And that's where, effective leadership comes in.
Yeah, you need leaders who can see the big picture,
Right.
but also understand the importance of all the little details.
Exactly.
Leaders who can balance innovation with safety.
And growth with responsibility.
Exactly.
It's a tall order.
It is, but it's crucial.
For sure.
Now, let's circle back to those regional dynamics we were talking about earlier,
Okay.
especially the rise of the Asia-Pacific market. The report highlights some pretty impressive growth figures for that region.
Yeah, we touched on that a bit.
But it also hints at the potential for increased competition between different regions.
Oh, interesting.
It's like a global chess match, right?
Uh-huh.
With each region trying to make the best moves
Right.
to gain an advantage in the market.
Exactly.
So you have North America, which is like the established powerhouse, but they're facing those production capacity constraints.
Right.
Then you have Europe, which is holding steady despite all the economic headwinds.
Yeah.
And then you have the Asia-Pacific region, which is emerging as this really formidable contender.
It's an interesting dynamic.
It is, but this competition isn't necessarily a bad thing, right?
Oh, definitely not. I mean, competition often drives progress.
Right. It can push each region to be more innovative
Absolutely.
and efficient.
Yeah, it raises the bar for everyone.
But it also raises some questions about global collaboration. Can these regions work together effectively
Right.
to tackle these shared challenges?
Yeah, like supply chain disruption.
Exactly, and developing sustainable technologies.
Right. Those are global issues that require global solutions.
Or will each region just prioritize its own self-interests?
That's the big question, isn't
That's
it?
like building an airplane. You need all the different parts to work together seamlessly.
Right.
If one part fails, the whole thing is compromised.
Exactly. So in the context of this report, do you think the industry is leaning more towards collaboration or competition?
That's a good question. It's hard to say for sure, but the report does emphasize the importance of collaboration across the supply chain because as the industry becomes more and more interconnected,
Right.
open communication and a shared vision for the future are even more important.
Absolutely.
It's like they all need to be on the same page.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to have problems.
And that makes you wonder what kind of leadership is needed to navigate this complex landscape.
That's a good point.
We need leaders who can encourage collaboration,
Right.
address all these geopolitical complexities.
And champion innovation.
Exactly. The future of commercial aerospace depends on it.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
We need leaders who can see the big picture, but also grasp the importance of those finer details.
Yeah, and leaders who are willing to challenge the status quo.
And embrace new ideas.
Absolutely. We need leaders who can bridge the gaps between regions.
And industries, even generations.
It's a tall order.
It is, but it's essential.
Now, let's talk a bit more about sustainable aviation fuels, or AF.
Okay.
The report didn't go into a lot of detail on this topic,
Right.
but it's gaining a lot of traction as the industry faces more and more pressure to reduce its carbon footprint.
Yeah, for sure.
SAF is seen as a potential game changer, and for good reason. It has the potential to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions
Right.
compared to traditional jet fuel.
But there are still some hurdles to overcome.
Like what?
Well, there are challenges with production capacity and cost effectiveness.
So it's not just about developing the technology.
Right.
It's about making it commercially viable.
Exactly.
For SAF to be a truly sustainable solution, it needs to be affordable and readily available on a large scale.
I agree. And that's going to require collaboration across the entire value chain.
Right, from the fuel producers to the airlines.
Your policymakers.
Yeah, everybody needs to work together.
To make it happen.
It's a huge undertaking.
It is.
But it's crucial if we want to see air travel grow sustainably
Absolutely.
without making the climate crisis worse.
For sure.
And SAF isn't the only innovation on the horizon.
Right.
There are also some exciting developments happening with electric aircraft,
Oh, yeah. That's a really interesting area.
which could offer even greater emission reductions, especially for shorter flights.
Yeah, that's where they have the most potential right now.
And we're already seeing some significant progress in this area.
We are.
Several companies are developing electric aircraft prototypes.
Wow.
Some are even aiming to launch commercial flights in the next few years.
That's amazing.
I mean, imagine a world where we can travel across the country without producing any emissions.
That would be incredible.
It sounds like science fiction?
Uh-huh.
It does a bit.
But it might not be that far off.
I think you're right.
And it really speaks to the transformative potential of the industry.
Oh, absolutely. We're on the cusp of a major shift, driven by this need for sustainability,
Right.
the rise of all these new technologies.
And the ever-growing demand for air travel.
It's a really exciting time.
It is. It's a dynamic landscape full of challenges and
Right.
opportunities.
Absolutely.
The report mainly focused on the state of the industry today.
But you've brought up some fascinating points about what the future might hold.
Well, it's fun to speculate a bit, right?
It is, and you're right. It is an exciting time to be following all these developments.
For sure. Yeah, it really is fascinating to think about how sustainable aviation fuels, SAF, and electric aircraft could completely change the industry.
Yeah.
Like right now, everyone's focused on scaling up production
Yeah.
to meet this huge demand.
Right.
But what if the real breakthroughs are in these new technologies?
Yeah, it's like we're at a crossroads, choosing between, like, making what we already have better or going in a whole new direction.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you think the industry is going to, like, lean towards one path over the other?
You know, I don't think progress ever really follows a straight line.
That's true.
I think it'll probably be a combination of both.
Okay.
Like we'll see those incremental improvements to existing technologies.
Right.
But also these like game-changing alternatives being developed at the same time.
Right, so it's like upgrading your avionics,
Yeah.
but also like experimenting with new engine designs.
Exactly.
And I guess that kind of balancing act makes sense
Yeah.
because of all the pressures the industry is under, right?
Oh, yeah,
The
definitely.
demand for air travel is only going to go up.
Right.
But so is the pressure to be more environmentally friendly.
For sure.
So it's like this constant push and pull.
Yeah, it's finding that sweet spot
Yeah.
between economic growth and being responsible.
And speaking of responsibility, the report also talks about safety,
Hmm.
especially after what happened with Boeing and the 737 MAX.
Right, of course.
It sounds like they're taking a much more cautious approach now
Okay.
when it comes to increasing production,
Good.
really prioritizing quality over quantity.
I think that's the right approach.
Yeah, and the report actually quotes Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun.
Mm-hmm.
He's emphasized a lot that safety is their top priority now.
It has to be.
They know they need to rebuild trust. And I think this shift to a safety-first culture
Yeah,
is good for everyone in the industry.
definitely. It sets a good example.
It shows that they're committed to earning back passenger confidence.
Which is essential.
Yeah, people need to feel safe flying.
Exactly.
So it's a good reminder that growth can't come at the cost of safety.
Absolutely not.
And it's not just about avoiding accidents, right?
Right.
It's about creating an industry where passengers feel safe and confident about flying.
Yeah, like a culture of safety.
Exactly.
Where everybody's committed to doing things the right way.
Right, so it's a holistic approach.
Absolutely. It's about taking all these things into account. Safety, environmental impact, economic viability, and technological innovation.
Wow, it's a complex equation.
It is. There are a lot of moving parts.
But the industry has to figure it out.
If they want to be successful in the long run.
Exactly. And that's where strong leadership is so important.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You need leaders who can see the big picture,
Right.
but also understand all those little details.
And can balance innovation with safety
Right.
and growth with responsibility.
Exactly. It's a lot to ask.
It is, but it's what's needed.
Now, going back to those regional dynamics,
Okay.
and especially the rise of the Asia-Pacific market,
Mm.
the report mentioned some really impressive growth numbers.
Yeah, we talked about that a bit.
But it also hints at this potential for more competition between different regions.
Oh, interesting.
It's like a global chess match, you know?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I like that analogy.
Each region is making its moves
Right.
to try to gain an advantage. So
Exactly.
you have North America, which is kind of the established powerhouse,
Yeah.
but they're facing those production capacity constraints.
Right. That's holding them back a bit.
Then there's Europe, holding steady despite all the economic problems over there.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well considering.
And then you have the Asia-Pacific region,
Mm-hmm.
which is becoming a real force to be reckoned with.
It's definitely a dynamic landscape.
It is, but this competition isn't necessarily a bad thing, right?
Yeah. No, not at all. Competition can be a good thing.
Right. It can drive innovation and
Exactly.
efficiency.
Yeah, it forces everyone to step up their game.
But it also makes you wonder about global collaboration. Can these different regions actually work together
Yeah, that's a good question.
to overcome these shared challenges?
Like supply chain disruptions.
Exactly. And developing sustainable technology.
Right, those are things that affect everyone.
Or will each region just focus on its own interests?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It's like building an airplane, you know?
Yeah,
You need all the parts to work together.
absolutely. You can't have one part failing.
Right. If one part fails, the whole thing is in trouble.
Exactly. So in the context of this report,
Yeah.
do you think the industry is leaning more towards collaboration or competition?
That's a tough one.
It is. There's no easy answer.
The report does emphasize the importance of collaboration across the supply chain.
Okay.
And I think that makes sense because as the industry gets more interconnected, open communication and a shared vision become even more critical.
I agree. Everyone needs to be on the same page.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to have problems.
For sure.
And that brings up the question of leadership.
Yeah, good point.
What kind of leadership is needed to navigate this complex landscape?
That's a big question.
We need leaders who can foster collaboration,
Right.
address all these geopolitical issues.
And champion innovation.
Exactly. The future of the industry depends on it.
It really does. We need leaders who can see the big picture,
Like
but also grasp the importance of the details.
leaders who can balance innovation with safety.
And growth with responsibility.
Yes, exactly.
It's a tall order.
It is, but it's crucial.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a bit more about sustainable aviation fuels, or
Yeah.
SAF.
Okay.
The report didn't go into too much detail on this,
Yeah, it was more of a high-level overview.
but it's a topic that's getting a lot of attention
It is, and for good reason.
because the industry is facing so much pressure to reduce its carbon footprint.
Right, sustainability is a major focus.
And SAF is seen as a potential game changer.
It has the potential.
It could significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, compared to traditional jet fuel.
Right. But there's still some hurdles.
There are.
Like what?
Well, production capacity is a big one.
Okay.
And also cost effectiveness.
Right. So it's not just about the technology itself.
Exactly.
It's about making it commercially viable.
Yeah, it needs to make sense financially.
For SAF to be a truly sustainable solution,
Hmm.
it needs to be affordable
Right.
and widely available.
I agree, and that's going to require a lot of collaboration.
Yeah, across the whole supply chain.
Exactly, from fuel producers to airlines to policymakers.
It's a big task.
It is, but it's an important one.
If we want to see air travel grow sustainably.
Absolutely, we can't ignore the environmental impact.
And SAF isn't the only innovation out there.
Right.
Electric aircraft are another exciting development,
Yeah, there's a lot of potential there.
especially for shorter flights.
Right, that's where electric aircraft make the most sense.
And we're already seeing some real progress.
We are, it's moving quickly.
Some companies are even planning to launch commercial flights in the next few years.
Wow, that's impressive.
Imagine traveling across the country without any emissions.
That would be amazing.
It sounds like science fiction.
It does, but it's becoming more realistic.
It really highlights the potential of the industry.
Oh, absolutely. We're on the verge of a major transformation.
Yeah, it's an exciting time.
It is. It's driven by the need for sustainability, all these new
Yeah.
technologies.
And the demand for air travel just keeps growing.
It does. It's a dynamic landscape.
It is full of challenges
For sure.
and opportunities. The
Definitely.
report focuses on the industry today.
Right. Kind of a snapshot of where things are now.
But you've brought up some really interesting points about the future.
Well, it's fun to think about what might be coming next.
It is, and you're right, it's an exciting time to be following all this. So we've talked about those future possibilities. But, we got to bring it back to the present.
Right. Back to reality.
The report also gets into the nitty-gritty of the supply chain and how important it is to make it more robust and efficient.
Yeah, that's a critical point for sure. I mean, we've already seen how much trouble supply chain disruptions have caused.
Right. Delays, cost overruns, safety issues even.
Exactly. It's a big problem.
And the report is pretty clear that companies need to ditch those manual processes and really embrace digital solutions.
Like digital twins and AI-powered analytics.
Right.
Those are going to be key.
That sounds like a pretty major shift for the industry.
It is. It's a whole new way of thinking about the supply chain.
So, what would that look like in practice? What specific steps can companies take?
Well, the report outlines a few key strategies.
Yeah?
One is to create a digital twin of the supply chain.
A digital twin.
Yeah, it's basically a virtual copy that maps out all the connections and dependencies.
Oh.
So you can see the whole system.
Instead of just focusing on individual parts.
Exactly. You get that big picture view
And I guess that helps you identify potential problems.
before they become big problems.
Right. So you're not just reacting all the time.
Exactly. It's about being proactive.
And this data-driven approach can also help with things like inventory management, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You can reduce waste, improve efficiency, the whole 9 yards.
It's like having air traffic control for your supply chain.
Exactly.
So everything runs smoothly.
Hopefully.
The report also talks about proactive supplier engagement.
Right. That's another important piece of the puzzle.
So it's not just about having fancy technology
It's also about how you use it.
and how you communicate
Yeah, it's about building stronger relationships with suppliers.
and working together to anticipate and address potential disruptions.
Exactly. It's a team effort.
Do you have any examples of what that collaboration might look like?
Sure. Imagine like shared dashboards
Hi.
where both the company and their suppliers can track key metrics in real time.
Oh, so everyone's on the same page.
Exactly. Total transparency.
I like that.
Or AI-powered chatbots that can streamline communication and problem solving.
So you're not just sending emails back and forth.
Right. It's much more efficient.
It seems like the industry is finally catching up to the digital age.
It's about time, right?
But the report also emphasizes that technology isn't the only answer.
Right. There's the human element, too.
It talks about the importance of investing in workforce development.
And training.
Yeah, Because as the industry adopts all this new technology,
We need people who know how to use it
right, we need a skilled workforce that can adapt.
and thrive in this new environment.
So it's not just about buying new software,
It's about investing in people.
giving them the knowledge and skills they need.
Exactly. It's about empowering your workforce.
So it's a holistic approach, right?
Absolutely. Supply chain resilience is about technology, processes, people, relationships
It's about everyone working together.
towards a common goal.
And that brings us back to leadership.
It always comes back to leadership, doesn't it?
It does, because we need leaders who can inspire their teams,
Right.
guide the industry towards a more sustainable.
And resilient future.
Exactly.
Leaders who can see the big picture, but also understand the importance of those little details. Leaders who can balance all those competing priorities. Innovation and safety, growth and responsibility.
Leaders who aren't afraid to challenge the status quo.
And embrace new ideas.
Leaders who can bridge the gaps between regions, industries, even generations.
It's a lot to ask, but that's the kind of leadership we need.
It is, but I think this deep dive has shown us
Yeah.
that the commercial aerospace industry is full of incredibly talented people
It is. There's so much innovation happening.
who are passionate about what they do.
And who are committed to making the industry better.
And I think that's what gives me hope for the future, because even though there are challenges,
There always are.
there are also so many opportunities.
Absolutely. It's an exciting time to be a part of this industry.
It is, and I think the future belongs to those who are willing to adapt
And innovate.
and collaborate.
Exactly. Those are the keys to success.
So as you gear up for your upcoming meetings and decisions,
Right.
keep in mind what we've learned from this deep dive.
Good advice.
The industry is poised for growth, but those supply chain issues are still a concern.
Definitely.
Sustainability is no longer optional,
It's a necessity.
and the future belongs to those who embrace innovation and collaboration.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Keep asking those tough questions.
Yeah, don't be afraid to challenge the status quo.
Explore the possibility.
And push the boundaries of what's possible.
The sky's the limit.
Right. It is in this industry.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into commercial aerospace.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful.
And thought-provoking.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring.
And keep those wings soaring.
We'll see you next time.